Hi there, it's Rick Turoczy, co-founder and general manager of Pi, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today and happy to have invited this panel of awesome entrepreneurs to talk to you about some of their experiences. Pi, at its very most basic, is this ongoing experiment to figure out how early stage startup founders can collaborate with established corporations, businesses, government institutions, educational institutions for mutual benefit. So situations like this that you find yourself in where you're collaborating with instrument as well as one another can be a really interesting way of pushing innovation forward. And that's the kind of stuff we've tried to foster throughout the 12 years that we've been around. Now, I often find that in our program, we learn as much from the founders as they learn from us. So it's my pleasure today to bring some of our alums together to share some of their insights about what it took to build their companies, things they wish they'd known, things they might have done wrong and wish they could go back and do again, or things that they did wrong and they learned from and they've improved the businesses that they're working on. So I'd like to give each of those founders an opportunity to introduce themselves and talk about what the current business they're working on is, and just to provide you with some context. And then we'll get into some providing you with advice on stuff that might be helpful as you're building companies throughout the F.O.U.R event. So I'm going to go in the order with the founders appearing on my screen. I'm going to start with Kat. Kat, you want to go and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Kat Miller, and I'm here today to share my journey with my first company, Stand-In, and also my current nonprofit, Voxbox. I spent my entire career in design, from branding, advertising, product strategy, really helping early stage founders tell their stories. And I went through Pi in 2013 and then Techstars in 2014. And we built one of the first mobile prototyping tools, and we operated for a few years, then we shut down. And that had a lot of lessons with it. And then, just recently, in the past year and a half, I've started a nonprofit supporting babies and their families through long hospital stays, inspired by my baby Cypress, who died from a rare form of leukemia in May of 2020. And he was absolutely amazing and joyful and wonderful and just full of life and spirit. And so helping other families matters a lot to us. And so we're in 3 children's hospitals now. We've supported over 50 families, and we have more hospitals we're onboarding this year.
Awesome. Thank you, Kat. Appreciate it. Sylvia, why don't you go next?
Hello, I am Sylvia Salazar. I am the founder of Tono Latino, that has become a media company specifically targeting disinformation in the Latino community here in the United States. I am a computer engineer, no background in journalism or communication. So this has been all like, learn as you go. And it's been 5 years. I decided to do this after the 2016 presidential election and seeing how the Latino population is now the largest non-white group in the country, but the one that voted the least. So we had a consistent below 50% turnout. And one of the things that I identified as an issue was the lack of information created specifically for the Latino community. So that's what I'm trying to address and learning as I go. And it's been fun. I will take a lot of the mistakes that I made have been great lessons. I don't think any of them. But having something like Pi has been amazing, because one thing that Rick once told me was that all entrepreneurs go through these like roller coasters of feelings, and we get like super high highs and super low lows, and Pi is like a dampener for those things. And I couldn't agree more, because when you're in those highs, those are great, but then when you're in those lows, those are like horrible. And to make those a little bit more, less of an abrupt wave is better.
Thank you, Sylvia. And for many of our founders, those highs and lows happen on exactly the same day. So they're like rising and crashing. So we try and help as best we can. Jeremy, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, those highs and lows, same day, same call, same hour. That's how it goes. But my name is Jeremy Roberts. I'm the founder of DashDoc. And what we've done is we've created a collection of magnetic card holders that are designed to make traffic stops less stressful. That is born out of some personal lived experience. And then, the fact that we've all seen the headlines over the last several years around the relationship between police and the community. And then for me specifically, Philando Castile's incident, I had a very strong reaction to that situation. That kind of catapulted me forward into doing something. At the time, I didn't know what, but I figured it out over the next several years. And we are now in market, and you can find us on dashdoc.com. My background is not traditional in any way, shape, or form. It's not linear. I'm a veteran, so I spent 4 years on active duty in the Coast Guard. I, from there, went on to work in New York City as a tailor, perfecting the fine art of tailoring and fit, which brought me kind of from New York to Portland, where I intersected with Rick and Pi I think it was 2015 or 2016. And had the good fortune to raise a little money and to give it a shot. We started a suiting service called Roberts, learned a ton there. It was a business I was really familiar with coming out of the world that I was just coming out of. But where things got tricky, which we'll probably talk about here in this session, is when we got into fashion tech and I tried selling software, having never sold software. So that's where things get really interesting. So happy to be sharing the stage and platform with these other fine folks this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Really appreciate it. And I'm glad to have all of you here. Usually Pi is a very kind of organic, collaborative community where people pop by all the time. But obviously for the past couple of years, we haven't had the opportunity to do that. So just getting together with founders who are alums of various classes and various versions of Pi is super rewarding. It's just great to see people again. So I'm happy everybody was able to join us. When we were kind of thinking about this panel, we wanted to kind of start with information that would be most valuable to you folks at the event. And given where you are in your process, we thought a great place to start would be things these founders wish they knew before they started their project. After they gained all their experience, like what are those few things that would have really been key to propelling their companies forward? And so we're going to start with that and then just kind of let the conversation go where it will. Kat, why don't we start with you and one thing you wish you'd known before you started?
Oh, it's such a great question. And it feels like a complete honor to be here to talk about it, to share that lived experience, to be on a panel with all these amazing folks. Time is my kind of biggest consideration. So when I was thinking about what was the biggest lesson that I learned, dedicating, a good few years working on this first startup that was all centered around design, which is my background. And I had tied it so much with my identity and the success with my identity. And when it wasn't a success and when it was hard, and when we had to shut it down, I was really trying to think about, like, what did I get out of that time, that investment? And originally I had thought, well, I invested all of this time in trying to do something really big and it didn't work. And I'm tying it to how I feel about myself professionally, personally, all of these big feelings wrapped up in the success of a project, a company. And, thinking back on it, that time was so valuable for so many other reasons. I was able to make community, which was the first time in my life I'd really been able to have that. I was able to understand what I wanted to do with my time. So really looking at my time as something that was more than just existing in the world. It was this opportunity I had to create change or do something more. And those are insights that I just somewhat recently really fully realized. And that was after my second son was diagnosed with leukemia, and I was living in Thornbecker Children's Hospital and just going through a year of torturous treatment with this amazing, wonderful human. And you spend a lot of time thinking about your time and where you want to invest that. And so, that's my outlook when I think about that perceived failure and something that didn't work. And I had tied up so much of my professional and personal identity into it. But when I think back on it now with perspective, that time was so valuable, and I'm so grateful for it because it led me to where I am now and really helped when I wanted to start a nonprofit to help other families.
Thank you, Kat. And I can remember conversations with us where there were key moments I can remember at Pi where you had that aha moment with time. I remember especially one around, like, I give a little talk about these are the types of meetings you can have, and like this is how much of your time each of these meetings will waste. Like a coffee meeting will waste 20 minutes, whereas a lunch meeting will waste an hour, and this will waste what. So, and I remember Kat going, that was a light bulb moment. So her ability to manage her time and understand the value of that time was something compelling that I learned from that class with Kat. Sylvia, what about you?
Well, a couple of things that we discussed on email before coming here. One, that I think anybody trying to start a company, do your trademark research on your name. That's like number one learning for Sylvia, because I actually picked a name. I was super proud. I hired a designer to do the logos and everything. I couldn't afford one in the US, so I went to my people in Colombia and they did it, and it was wonderful. And then I went through the Thai boot camp and we met a lawyer, and he pointed out some things that made me think that maybe I was infringing on a trademark. So that I checked, and sure enough, Sylvia had a name that was used by the ACLU. So that was great, because I'm like, I'm not going to go against the fight with the ACLU. Come on. So we went back and forth with the lawyer, and we came to the conclusion, like, if you keep growing, the chances of you getting that cease and desist letter are just going to go up. So might as well just cut your losses, sunk costs, change it now. And I did, and I'm actually very happy because I like the newer name than the actual name better. But it was crushing because I was like so tied to this thing, and we had gone through the whole process of creating the logo and blah, blah, blah. And then it was like a month of like, it took me a really long time to figure out, like, okay, get out of this funk, move on. It just, people are going to come with you, whatever. So that was like one of the best pieces of advice that I can give you. And the other one that we can elaborate on later so that we can hear from Jeremy is I see entrepreneurship a lot like parenthood. You get a lot of people with a lot of opinions and advice, and you have to choose. You can listen to all of them because they all have great inputs and they come, I think, with really good intentions, but not everything is going to apply to you. And I had some wonderful people that I swear they had very good intentions, but on the one hand, this man, they were always men, man telling me that nobody was ever going to pay attention to me if I was communicating news, because I am always cold. Like, this is as much skin as you're going to see from me pretty much all year. But if you're a Latina and you're not showing cleavage like Sofia Vergara, nobody's going to pay attention to you, Sylvia. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm sorry, but Sylvia's not giving the news in a bikini. That's not happening ever. So either they get on board or they can just go find bikini news girl. And on the other hand, another white man was wonderful in giving me advice that said, Sylvia, you need to focus on this other kind of audience that you're missing out on. And that one was at first very shocking. I didn't like his advice, but I let it like just process, and turns out he was right. So like parenthood, just listen to what people have to say and then like just let it sit in, sink, and then make your choices.
Thank you, Sylvia. Jeremy, how about you? What do you wish you knew before you started stuff?
Yeah, no, these are great insights. I wish I knew more about money, and I say money holistically, not just talking about fundraising, not just talking about personal finances, like the total picture and the total package of money and finances as it relates to your startup. I think one big consideration that I missed, and something I still work through to this day in terms of trying to rehash what happened in order to make it better moving forward, but just entering into your startup or your company, knowing what your relationship is with money. right? Because if you grow up or your foundation is not really solid around money, you don't know how to deal with it, handle it, think about it, that will impact your decision making as a leader, and that could be to the detriment of your idea, your company, the people that you support, by way of employment. And for me, I think in hindsight, because it's always 2020, right? That's something I wish I had a better relationship with, a better understanding of, and was just more educated around. I wish I was more financially literate. It would have helped our runway in certain scenarios. It would have helped me make decisions on how hard to go on a specific campaign, or maybe I don't release XYZ items in favor of sustaining the marketing action. And so I think that's a really big one. And I feel like it gets missed a lot when we see the TechCrunch articles or the Forbes things where you got the 30 under 30s or whatever list or whatever new companies raising and whatnot. Not everyone maintains that status or that cash. So I think it is really important to understand where you are personally with money, what your philosophy around money is. And if it's not up to par, making sure you get someone in your circle that can help you think a lot more strategically and challenge you in certain areas, or push you along in other areas that will allow you to have a better shot at success.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. What I loved about each of your pieces of advice was we're really talking about a type of investment, right? So like for Kat, that investment was time. For Jeremy, it's more the kind of financial aspects and having a grasp of that. And for Sylvia, it was really kind of the investment of social capital, or that transactional social capital between peer-to-peer or kind of mentor to founder kind of stuff, which immediately gets me thinking about the one thing none of us can avoid, which Jeremy touched on, which is this prevailing mythology about how startups are built and how you build a company or project. And these days, all of that mythology kind of centers around venture capital. And I know, Kat, you've had some dealings with that. Jeremy, you've had some dealings with that. Sylvia, we had discussions about whether that was the right direction or not. So I just kind of want to throw it out there. What about that experience is something you would like to share with other founders, whether to avoid it completely or ways to better navigate it? I'm just curious from y'all, like what learnings you have about that particular aspect of the business. And anyone can go.
Oh, well, I just wanted to echo what Jeremy was talking about, financial literacy, because that is something that, I definitely struggled with. And I totally echo what he said. Like that having someone in your circle that can talk to you about that, it's huge, especially in the context of whether or not to raise venture capital money, which puts you on a certain trajectory, right? Like you're going to have a certain kind of outcome and it's expected, versus doing something that is more community minded. Maybe it's thinking about money a little bit differently and funding for it differently. And those two, I think, get a lot of press as far as like good and bad and cool and not cool. And it's really just what makes sense for what you're building. And only you can answer that.
Jeremy, what about you? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of got the awakening when I was trying to raise money, when everyone would ask me about an exit before I'd even started. And I'm like, you come up with a lofty, optimistic founder response, but the reality is you do need to think about the end at the beginning, and it doesn't always need to be the exit that a VC fund would want you to have. It's just like, what is the mission? 9 times out of 10, you've already established that, or you figure that part out. But if you think about the end in the beginning, it'll inform how you should fund your business. Maybe it can remain a side hustle. Maybe it's more efficient and better for you and your personal life for it to remain, something on the side of it, maybe a 9 to 5 or some other venture that you're doing. Not everything is, venture capital doesn't solve all the problems. I tell some people who ask me about fundraising to consider whether or not you want to expend so much energy welcoming so many other opinions into your equation to the point that you aren't able to lead or effectively run your company. And it takes a certain type of leader to want to welcome that, and that can actually handle that. And some people, myself included, I got swept up in the, oh, this is how you start a company. Oh, I need to go raise money. Okay, how do you do the pitch deck? Okay, how do you structure a pitch? Okay, what do I need to? How do I pivot? And all these other terms that you learn on the fly. And in some cases, it worked out for us, but in other cases, it wasn't the best mode for us to go down or to explore at the given time that we did it. So I just think just the consideration for the end state, right? That will inform how you go out and, go about doing it. And then, making sure you take care of yourself and if you have a family, immediate family, and people that you're responsible for, that you're parenting and whatnot, just making sure you're considering the impact of them as well, financially and emotionally.
See, I told you it was going to get cold. So on my side, like Rick mentioned, from the get-go, it was really easy to figure out. For my case, I didn't want any kind of venture capitalist. And I was very, very careful because I was doing media. I didn't want any person trying to influence what kind of information I was going to share with my community. But Jeremy is absolutely right that you need to figure out your relationship with money. And in my case, I will share with you something that I don't think I've ever shared. I had this mentality that because I was trying to do this thing to save the Latino community from not getting involved in politics, it was wrong of me to monetize this thing in any way. That because I was so blessed and privileged to have a husband that was supporting me, then I didn't kind of deserve to monetize this in any way possible because it would be bad. And it's taken a lot of work, and I'm still not a person that is driven by money. So it's very hard for me to think, how can I monetize something? So you definitely need to understand where you are lacking in this area and partner with people that can show you, Sylvia, or whatever your name is. It's okay to monetize, because the moment you can make money, you can make a bigger impact. And it had to be like drilled into my head that making money is not a bad thing in the space that I'm in. It's just a way to make a bigger impact, and you deserve to be, paid for all the work that you're putting in. So that was like my lesson, and I'm still learning it every day. But now at least I know where I have my faults and my gaps, and I can go and find the people that are like, hey, what about this? Or partner with the right people that will help me monetize to make the bigger impact so I can continue with my mission.
Well, thank you, everyone. Another aspect of starting your own company, working with your team, is I find it challenging for a lot of founders who kind of go heads down, and it's really a struggle to try and get out there or to talk to other people or share your idea or kind of socialize it. And, there are often kind of concerns where, well, somebody might take my idea or that kind of thing, which I've never, ever seen happen. But I know each of you, Jeremy, I'm just so impressed with his trajectory. I can remember sitting down with him and he's like, well, this is a gap in my knowledge. I'm going to go get a job at a company doing that job and figure out how to fill that gap, and just kind of proceeded to do that. And it was just an absolute joy to kind of watch him continue to grow and develop this knowledge base very methodically and strategically. And that's helping DashDoc today. And then Kat, she and I are both very introverted. And Kat, I was like, I need you to pitch your company at Demo Day for Pi. And that was never going to happen. But I was happy to see that by the time she went through Techstars, she was the one pitching the company. So that kind of progression was really impressive to see. And as Sylvia described, the kind of overcoming this stigma or this hurdle about you getting paid to do the work that's important to you, and ensuring that it's sustainable and that you're not burnt out. And you all did this very, very well. But can you share any advice for kind of overcoming those hurdles or kind of coming at it from a different direction that might help some of these folks who feel awkward asking for capital or asking for help or sharing their ideas? Do you have any advice there for folks? And that's just open to anyone.
I think my favorite advice about doing stuff out of your comfort zone came from one of our PI classmates, Mata. And she's so inspiring. But I remember sitting very nervous in this big new group of people, and I had just quit my job, and it was all big and stressful and all the things. And I didn't really know how to talk to anyone. And I was really struggling with that. And so I had also just moved to Portland, so all the things. And I remember Mata just saying to everyone, who wants to go talk to strangers on the street with me? Because I have a journalism background, and let's go do it. And I remember that willingness and generosity of spirit and openness just really inspired me. And I still think to this day when I do meetings or anything, I'm like, what would Mata do? But like you have those moments in community where you're just so inspired by someone else, and you're like, they can do it, I can do it, I'm going to go do it. And you just have to remind yourself that you do big and hard things every single day.
That would freak me out.
No one did it. Like we were just like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And everyone was very introverted and
it's
scared.
Like you go do that and tell us how it goes. Right on. I would say that really consider your why. Why are you doing the thing that you're doing or setting out to do the thing that you want to do? If you want it bad enough, I don't really subscribe to hustle porn or anything like that these days. Like, you got to take care of yourself. But if you want your thing or your idea to exist that bad, what are you willing to do to give it a fighting chance? I'll speak for me, like even right now with DashDoc, it's knowing that content is necessary, educating consumers is necessary. I'm not a podcast host. I'm not a radio personality. I don't necessarily do a ton of public speaking. I'm comfortable talking to people about things, but putting myself out there and trying to be more vulnerable for the sake of the people we're trying to help and the people that we're serving in our small but growing community. That is where I kind of draw the line and kind of jump over it. It's like, I want to bridge this gap so bad. I want to ease the relationship and reduce the tension between the community and police so bad that I will fumble my way through interviewing someone on a Zoom or in a public forum in efforts to educate at least one person, right? If I can help one person, kind of reduce their anxiety around, interacting with police, then that's why I do it. So I would say, consider the why and really how bad you want to do it, because I think the universe will start to weed out the entrepreneurs in that realm. If you only want to do it to make money, you only want to do it to be famous, that's not long-lived. That usually doesn't work out for you long-term. Some people get insanely lucky and it does work out, but that's not the norm. And don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. So I would say consider the why and then get down and ask yourself, how bad do I really want this thing to exist?
I would combine what you just said in my case with the advice that I gave at the beginning of like trusting who you get advice from, because there are some, unlike the bad advice of like you need to wear cleavage to get your point across, there are some people that actually see things from a different perspective and they really want you to succeed, and they have advice or ideas or a point of view that you haven't considered. And that was exactly my case with PI alum Marceau Michel from Black Founders Matter, who challenged me to get on camera. So I don't qualify as like a full introvert like Rick and Kat, but like I'm like right there in the middle. And he told me, Sylvia, I don't care how good you think you're a writer, because I was doing this via a newsletter. You're never going to be as good and as like passionate as the way you are in person. So you need to start making videos. And I was like, you're out of your damn mind. Like, no, there's no way in hell. So he challenged me to do it. And he was absolutely right. It freaked me out, but it was all about the why is what got me to do it. was like, okay, this is bigger than me. Doesn't matter if you look like an idiot, just do it. And also, he was very smart. The way he did it was he challenged me to do it. And if not, then I would have to donate $15 to a cause that I despise. So 5 minutes before the deadline, there were 2 videos posted just to make sure that we were all good. But it's about taking the advice of the people that you know really, really care about you and connecting it with your why and being like, yes, I'm going to go through this because my why is way more important than how uncomfortable I'm going to feel for this short amount of time.
And that hits on something that it just reminds me of another problem that founders constantly struggle with. And I wonder if Jeremy and Kat can kind of pile on here as well is, what Sylvia described was she had this either product or vision that was a really compelling, like, won't the world be a better place when this exists and this is working and those kind of things. But she found a way to kind of boil that down to a tactical first step. Now it was through intimidation, but still it worked. So if other founders, I know both Jeremy and Kat struggled with this as well. Like, how do you get it out of that kind of like big vision mentality and get down to like day-to-day tactics? Do you have any tricks or advice for folks struggling with that kind of thing?
That's a really interesting question because I'm a designer, and that's really distilling information is technically that's just all that we do as designers, and it comes out in different ways. And I love doing that and I'm good at it, but sometimes it was really hard to do that in my own perspective, especially with stand-in. And it just really ties back to what Jeremy said. Jeremy and Sylvia, I feel like this is just like an amazing opportunity just to like, you guys are awesome. And everything you're saying, I'm just like, they should just be talking. I'm just sitting here nodding like, yes, of course, but it's the why.
No, it's about the collective. Yeah.
But it's the why. Like that what motivates you to say, I have this vision for what I want to do. How do I do it? I have to figure it out. And you use that why to find the people that you can introduce into your community. In my case, it was Pi. Being able to work with you and to ask questions, be vulnerable and have those moments of like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to, and how do I do it? What did you do? And seeing how that applies to what your journey is, because everyone's so different. But yeah, it's the why that's the motivating factor.
Yeah, I mean, I think about Sylvia's example. It's right now, it's like I'm up trying to figure out TikTok, and I'm like, I feel old about it, and I'm like, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I got to figure out TikTok. And I asked myself this question specifically: am I willing? My wife would laugh if she heard me say this. Am I willing to dance on the internet in service of the community that I'm looking to help out? And it wasn't a quick yes, but we ultimately got to a yes. So I'm not leading with the fact that I'm going to now be dancing on TikTok, because that still might not be the case, but the want and the drive to do so and to figure out how to make it work for what we're doing, that's where I'm at with it. And, I'm a creative as well, Kat, and I struggled historically with organization, being too high level, going from vision to vision, idea to idea. And at a certain point, I think that's what led to the kind of the demise or the lack of traction in my second startup, the fashion tech company. You can say all the lofty things in a deck and you can communicate certain things to certain people, but it comes to delivering a product and shipping a product, it's something quite different. You've got to be on it. If you don't have a team that can deliver it for you, you've got to get into the weeds and figure out how to get yourself together and, in service of the greater good. And over time, I've found tools and little things that help me do that, but it's something I work on actively on a day-to-day basis.
And just a side note, and thinking about like the why and community and finding people, I accidentally figured out TikTok a little bit. So if you ever want to talk about it, let me know.
I'm getting so many ideas for you, Jeremy.
Boy, I'm sensing a Pi workshop coming up here soon on TikTok stuff. Sylvia,
I'm there.
Sylvia, do you have anything else to add to that part?
No,
Okay. Yeah, I think you covered it. I mean, you really inspired that question. So, so thank you for that. I hate bringing founders on stage without a chance to give them the stage for their current ask or kind of what they're doing. So we've got a couple minutes left. If we could just go around and what can the community be doing to help support you and your efforts with the companies you're building? Sylvia, let's start with you since you're off mute.
Well, to support me, you can, if you want, you can follow Tono Latino, tono.latino on Instagram, same handle on TikTok, even though I don't share as much on TikTok. But Jeremy, maybe you and I can challenge each other. But what I really, really would like everybody to do is just get more involved in politics, especially at the local level. We're seeing some horrific things happen around the country, and those are addressed by local politics. So please double check, triple check your voter registration. I know in some cases like Texas, the deadline already passed, but for the primaries, but you can still get in line to register for the midterm elections this year. Tell 3 friends about it, make sure that they're registered to vote and participate in every single election.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anyone who just joined, but DashDoc, what we've done is we've created a collection of card holders, similar to your wallet or something you might be carrying on your person today, that are designed specifically to make the interaction in a traffic stop less stressful between both you, the driver, and your passengers and law enforcement agencies. And that's again born out of some lived experience and some really insightful conversations I've had recently and over the last couple of years with law enforcement officials and leaders and whatnot. And to boil it all down, it's a huge ask to ask someone to do something differently in terms of their day-to-day habits, or even us asking you to say, asking you to no longer put things in your glove box and now you can fold them up and put them in your wallet. That's not an easy thing to do. But we do so with great intention, and my only ask is that you check us out and give us some feedback. We're a young company. Feedback has been positive so far. Some feedback has been challenging, but for me as a founder and someone who's trying to grow this to a massive scale for the sake of our mission, feedback is critical. And it doesn't always have to come with a purchase. Sometimes feedback can be free, and it can be just as valuable, if not more. So my ask would be for anyone who's interested to check us out at www.dashdoc.com and give us your thoughts, either in a review or shooting us a note through our contact page. I welcome all of it and just want to see how the world feels about what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. And finally, Kat.
So at the start of this panel, I mentioned that I started a nonprofit to honor my second son, Cypress, who lived most of his life at our children's hospital undergoing leukemia treatments. And our nonprofit that we started to honor his joyful spirit with supports other babies and families through long hospital stays. So we built evidence-based boxes that are personalized to each baby based on their preferences, that support their educational, social, emotional, and developmental growth. And we also support all the big feelings that come along with a really long hospital stay for siblings and caregivers. We've partnered with amazing companies in the baby space to be able to provide those boxes. And we love to just tell stories about what life is like in the hospital with an infant, because unfortunately the lack of support is really there. Most folks think of babies in the hospital as the NICU, and there are hundreds of thousands of babies every year that have long hospital stays that aren't in the NICU, and we're there to support them. So we're at Foxbox Baby on Instagram and TikTok, and we would just love to have you join the conversation and just kind of experience the stories that we share.
Awesome.
And if you,
go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's like, and you feel like supporting it, we are a nonprofit. We exist on community donations.
Cool. Thank you, Kat. And I will jump on the event Slack and get you everybody's links and socials and all that kind of stuff. So you've got that. We're at time. So my just last ask is, first of all, thanks to each and every one of these amazing founders for kind of sharing their insights and knowledge. I hope you found them as inspiring as I did, especially given that you're going into a work session now and could probably use some inspiration. So hopefully that helped. My ask of you is this: if you want to get to hang out with awesome people like this, if you're working on something interesting, our applications open in mid-February and close in mid-March. So if something like Pi could be helpful for the project you're working on or something else, please consider applying for our program. We would love to see it come through. And with that, I think we'll sign off and hand it back to our MC so you can move on to the next section. Thanks very much for having us, and hope to talk to you soon.